What's up, Andy?
Hey,
So
hello.
for those of you who are kind of like new coming into this, what this is what we're calling very cornerly a Shardcast, which is a podcast on Shardstone assembly for Scavenger, all that kind of stuff. We kind of want to use this as an opportunity to try and tell people about who we are, how we came to the idea, what the ideas are, where we're going, and use different topics in the episodes in the future to kind of elaborate on the world, see what else we're doing, where our inspirations are coming from, and all that kind of stuff. So to start out with, just a good introduction, I am Marquis Hardis. I am the writer and the game designer for Shardstone Assembly. I'm the one who wrote the majority of the Scavenger book, and he did have his contributions with that short story and stuff you did. I did all the game design, all that stuff for a lot of the idea design and sketching out how the world works in that. So
You're the main game designer more primarily before
yeah,
writing and everything.
yeah. Yeah, before everything else, I guess, yeah, I am game designer, like number
Yes,
one, given that I make all the mechanics and that kind of stuff for it. Yeah.
but tell me more about your background on that.
So let's see. I started playing D&D back, and I played for the first time D&D in high school. I played it with some friends over at his house. We really didn't know what the rules were that much. We were playing off a D&D wiki, which I think is pretty funny, which is like a bunch of like homebrew bullshit that doesn't really work that well. So we were just kind of like throwing things into the kitchen sink and all that, playing around. I didn't get into 5th edition D&D or running tabletop role-playing games as actual games. So I want to say 2016. It was my freshman or sophomore year in college. I was playing with my roommates, some other friends. We had a pretty big group, and starting from there, I started getting more heavily into game design and everything. My creative background goes back further. I mean, I've been writing stories since I was a kid. I went to school originally for psychology, and then I switched to English. And then I switched from English. Actually, I kept English. I graduated with that. And then that was in 2018. And then I went for my master's, and I graduated with my master's degree as well. So from Charlotte, North Carolina, not the most attractive artistically city. No real romance here and that kind of like outfit and everything. But it all kinds of comes together in the Scavenger in the end anyway. So
Nice, but I guess you played D&D before when you were like a kid or something, right?
no, see, the first time was in
You
high
didn't.
school.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
So,
okay.
and then in 2014, I jumped into it seriously. I was watching a game on YouTube called The Provokers, which is Matt Click, which are the guys who made Absolute Tabletop. It was their first D&D game. So I was watching that, and I was like, I want to run games like that. And that segued into me running games, me developing stuff, because I quickly like hit a ceiling where it was like I need to be able to make new things for people to do in my games. It's having a lot of ideas. So I kind of had a runaway effect there from me seeing that game to me getting where I am now. I'm out here designing games and stuff, which I think is a fun way to kind of synthesize my art of like writing and everything with literacy and kind of creative writing and all of that through game design with D&D.
Nice, man.
So
And
what
look
about you,
at you, like
Andy?
if a few years later, and you're like full-blown game designer.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah. So the dream was always to get like something on Kickstarter, right? Now we've had 2
It's
Kickstarters.
happening.
Yeah, it's happening. So it's pretty dope. It was
Super cool.
very surreal the first time we finished our first Kickstarter when we funded, and within 4 hours on the first day, I was like, oh, finally, this is what it feels like. So that was
Yeah, it was
dope.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a feeling that you have to go through to
Yes,
understand it.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So what about you, Andy? What is your background?
My background. So I'm Andy, or Alexandru Negoița, my Romanian name. Andy is the nickname, or Dominus, what I'm calling on the internet. So many names.
So many.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, co-created Shardstone Assembly with you, and I came up with the idea of Scavenger, and I did all the illustrations. But yeah, so let's go back a bit. I'm from Romania. I was born in Romania long time ago. Before the
Long
oceans
time.
drank Atlantis.
Yeah, many dark years ago that won't be revealed here.
Exactly. So yeah, this is why my see, this is my strange accent and my poor
No,
English
that's
skills.
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
But I didn't play D&D until about 10 years ago or something like that. I didn't have the occasion. I knew about it, but like I played many computer RPGs. But back in Romania, yeah, there wasn't a big scene for that, especially when I was like a kid or something like that. So what I grew up was like computer games, but those are even later, like in mid 90s, 2000s, and stuff like that. But yeah, I heard about D&D and I was like, oh, this is super cool. I need to play, but nobody knew how to play. There was nothing about it. So yeah, but that changed slowly. My background is video games.
Okay.
I'm still working in the video games industry, probably for the past 15 years or something like that. I'm a game artist, art director, concept artist, illustrator, you name it, like everything with regards
15,
art.
15 years is a long time. You've seen an evolution in video games in your 15 years doing that.
It started with pixel art. Really.
Wow, that's crazy. And now where are we at? Now we're doing these beautiful illustrations of yours.
Next step. I think so. I hope so. Yeah. But yeah, Scavenger, let's see, Scavenger started about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
I think it's 5 years ago, or probably like that. 5 years ago, actually, I moved to Sweden. I'm in Sweden right now. I work here and I live here. And it started like an idea of a comic book initially. It was called Ziggurat.
Great name, still a great name.
Yeah, great name, but a lot of people use it in other games and products and whatever. But yeah, it was, I don't remember exactly what was it about. It was some philosophical tale about the post-apocalyptic ancient world. So there is something about it. But then after a few pages, I realized it will take me like 50 years to finish it. And it's so, making comics, it's so damn hard.
I know, man, because I keep wanting to ask him, like, yo, Andy, what if we made a comic though? And you're like, no, it's too hard.
No, I did an army of myself to do it.
Yeah, I feel that.
I would love to, but no, it's impossible at this point. But yeah, then there was this wave, like a lot of people I knew, mostly artists, created their own Kickstarters for their art books. And this sparked an idea, maybe I can do that. I don't know. Also, there was like a background of, let's call it frustration, but I'm not sure if it's frustration, maybe ambition. I applied for Magic the Gathering as an artist.
Yeah, you
got rejected a few times. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make my own book then.
No, I feel that entirely. Yeah.
Yeah, and initially it was an idea of not initially, like after the comics phase. I think it was like an art book, just with fantasy heroes, over the top heroes, because that's my comfort zone, I guess. And after making a few of those, I realized like there is no connection between them. What's the idea behind this? I need a story.
Visions.
I need a story to connect them, to make, like, if I make a book and it have to make sense. So but I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer at all. I tried. It's not my thing. But I put the basis of that world, like the overview of the world, and that was to become later the Scavenger book. That when you came into the project, you were the catalyst. Basically, you were like, this is what I need to make this happen.
Yeah, to put everything together.
And I'm so lucky to have met you, because we clicked so much on this project. We're on the same page with everything, and I love this.
It's funny too, because Scavenger's, like, on paper, it's a very weird setting that we've made. Bronze Age kind of idea, going with the post-apocalyptic with that, working in like weird science and everything, torn and all that stuff. It's pretty strange. So when you were coming up with Ziggurat back when it was like a graphic novel, and then you were doing your art book idea originally, what were you thinking? Like when you were drawing, like what were you drawing on? Like any like life experience or any ideas you wanted to see when you were painting all these first paintings, or?
That's the problem. I don't think I had anything specific. I just wanted to make some super cool stuff, otherworldly, like not the basic fantasy D&D heroes, like something different, but something cool. But there was nothing behind that. Later it came in this. I love ancient history, so I guess I love to place my setting in that type of world, and to make it more interesting, let's make it a bit post-apocalyptic ancient world. I think that's something that an idea I had for a long time. And
because that was in the original Ziggurat too. It's a post-apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not the most original idea, but it in my mind, at that point, I think I had some ideas that I could make it work in an original way through the art style, at least. So but it's another thing that I remember now, how I came up with the
those two are those misty years that shall not be named.
Yeah, actually, it took a few years to come up with something coherent.
Really? So did you have like a lot of like sketches and stuff originally that you would like throw away?
Yeah, I have some sketchbooks here, but they're like nothing. It was so all over the place. But the word scavenger, I had like a big list of names of like what I consider cool names, catchy names for the world. I tried to come up with that earlier in that stage when I realized I want to make this a setting.
Yeah.
Because it's not mandatory, but I think for me it worked better to give a better sense of the world through one word.
That makes sense.
Ziggurat was a good one, I guess. Although, it kind of gives you an idea, but not really.
Different vibe than what we ended up settling with Scavenger.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at that point I rewatched the movie. What is it called?
Stalker.
Yeah, Tarkovsky Stalker.
Which you had me watch too. Great movie.
Yeah, and basically the idea of the scavengers going to another world and gather resources, and like they're like outcasts in a post-apocalyptic environment. Mostly comes from there. But the name came from. So I had a long list, and finally I decided on one. It was like a creature in the first Diablo game, Scavenger. It's like, oh, the word is cool, it's catchy, it's also similar to Pathfinder. It's another.
So, it's unique compared to the other names that were operating around.
Yeah, and it fits well with what they're doing in this world, like the characters playing the game. So
that's pretty cool. That's a glimpse into those ancient beginnings that I didn't even know really when I came onto the project. So when you were developing everything into art books and that kind of stuff, because you have like that punk aesthetic to a lot of your drawings, especially to the actual scavengers themselves. So I just like, because I know you used to be a punk yourself, Andy. So did that just come from like that?
Not really. I like punk music, but I was not like that kind of punk. I liked doing some, crazy photo shoots, just.
You like the aesthetic of it. Yeah. I feel that.
I love that. But I guess a lot of aesthetics, what I try to pour in the Scavenger are drawn from the artist Brom, which I really, really love. He's an amazing artist and person, which I was lucky to meet a few years ago.
Which is dope. It's super dope.
Yeah, he's super awesome person. And yeah, I love his aesthetics and art. And I know he did a lot of art for Dark Sun,
Yeah.
which yeah, another computer RPG that I played in the 90s that drew me to the D&D, because I didn't knew about D&D when I played the first Dark Sun game, Shattered Lands. It was like 1994 game or
Yeah, it's
something like
old,
that.
ancient. I tried playing
Super
it
old.
a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, "How do I figure this out? What am I doing here?" It was so
Yeah,
confusing to me. I was like, "Man, people who were gaming back in the early '90s, they had a different environment that they were using for that."
it's true. Super hardcore right now,
hmm
but it's still, I think it's one of the it's a very good game.
hmm
The story and everything, it's good. It's hard to play, yeah, but
The story is
uh,
pretty solid, yeah.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
aesthetic of
So
Dark Sun is like, it's beyond crazy. Braum did like
yeah,
magic on that.
yeah, exactly. So of course, a lot of inspiration for Scavenger came from Dark Sun, but mostly from the Brom's art, I guess, from that aesthetic. And you know, we talked about it. We love Dark Sun. We love Planescape as well, but we try not to copy those games. We try to get inspired by them and
Yeah.
create something new and fresh from that inspiration. You know, and I think we succeeded.
No, definitely. When you look at scavenger art, so I look at, I mean, obviously I love art and RPGs. I collect a lot of RPGs, play a lot of RPGs. Scavenger is unique in that the art you see, it literally looks like it's like this vivid art from a completely different universe with like a little very tenuous connection at best to the one that we live in. Like the kind of like the armors they wear, the greens, like the chitons and all that kind of stuff, the weapons they have. It's pretty strange and weird, but in a way that has been described to me by other people as like grounded, which makes it like a lot more sensible, roots it in the kind of the fantasy and the fiction and everything that's going on.
Yeah, exactly. That is why we talked about it in the beginning. Like we wanted something exactly grounded, as you said. Another big influence on creating this type of world, the aesthetics of the world, was the movie Conan the Barbarian from 1982. Although it has magic, I feel that movie is very grounded somehow.
Yeah.
It's not high fantasy, you know. It's not. It is, but it's not in that
It's
kind of way.
gritty. It's gritty.
Yeah. And it's that's why we decided not to have like the classic magic system in Scavenger, not to go with the classic D&D tropes like elves, orcs. We don't have this. No, what is called religions aspects. We have mysticism.
Oh
Which
yeah,
is
yeah. So
rather
like no
different.
like deities, that kind of thing.
Yeah, stuff like that. So we try to create something original and twist everything different.
Yeah. Which it was really fun because basically, so for those who are, you don't know a lot about Scavenger, how it came about, a lot of it was Andy would give me a piece of art and then I would just start collecting different ideas to thrust into that piece of art and like deconstruct it like that to see what the world around it was, which was really fun. So like you would give me, let's see, let me think I can think of one. We could just talk about like the old Panor Plains picture, the red grass of it, the kind of weird sky and everything. All those different things just basically point to different ideas. So with the Panor Plains grass, like, okay, so this grass is red, has to have some kind of strange either liquid coming from it or inside of it, that kind of thing. The ecology here has to be completely different, that kind of stuff. So it was pretty fun, like deconstructing, looking at the outlines of the world around the pictures you would send me to write about.
Yeah, it was fun because when you joined the project, I had quite a lot of pictures already done, already made, and I think that was a good thing because also I had like a structure of the basic world and story plots and the characters, the major ones in place, and you just from there you populated everything and developed them, and yeah, that was great to see, like flourish. Like you have one seed and then you have this plant coming out.
Plant coming out, the tree coming out of it. It was fun to do. You did have a lot of NPCs, which I thought was really cool. The first two pictures I ever saw of Scavenger, which led to me like DMing you and getting on this project. It was one picture of these two scavengers in this weird like blackish thing off in the distance. I'll send you a picture of it in a moment, and we can put it up on the
maybe
podcast.
we can.
That one was really cool. And then the picture of the woman in green with the red hair.
Mm-hmm,
You know what I'm talking about? I saw that one. I was like, okay, between these two pictures, I know for a fact I can come up with something really cool that links all this world together. So that was pretty fun. Like seeing all the pictures come in with like the Zenith people as well, the Zenith person, I should call it. Which, fun fact, were originally called the Ancients until we realized that name was used by literally everybody. So I took that as a chance to go ahead and kind of rewrite that idea a bit, add some more nuance and like flavor to it.
Yeah, and I think like thinking about it, stripping everything down, I think the basic idea, it's not something really unheard of. Like it has been done before, but we have so many layers that are fresh, and it brings a different view to the whole aspect of this world, I guess.
Definitely.
Another thing that was very hard, even before you joined, I was struggling to find like a template for world building, because it's not easy. Like, okay, you decide one day, like, okay, let's make a book. I want to make this world. Where do you start? There's so many angles you can attack. You know, it's so complicated, and I think I spent a month just Googling world building stuff, listening to books, reading more stuff.
How to do it.
Like, and another important thing that I think not even today we figure it out completely. It's how do you store all this information in a place? Like I think the good place would be like a wiki page, but it's not easy to make. So you need to invest a lot of time into making.
You have to maintain it, all that kind of thing. Yeah. And you come up with so many like ideas that we just like had that we just haven't had a chance to like put into something yet. A whole bunch of like animals, ideas, mysticisms, all that kind of thing, right? And it can be hard to find where to put them. But when we finally find where to put them, it always feels so good. I'm finally happy. Like I'm happy, like, oh, this finally has a home for it.
Yeah, it's a Google Drive. It's no mystery. Use the Google Drive for them. Google Docs. It's not perfect, but it worked so far. We need a bit more structure. It's true, but it worked. But it was a real mayhem in the beginning. I had like sketches and notes everywhere because exactly when I started to have this, I need to make this world. Like everywhere I went, everything I saw, it was an aspect or a thing that like I could import into Scavenger.
Yeah.
Like, I see this tree. It's a cool tree. I take a picture. Maybe I can modify. I don't know. Anything I was looking around, anything I was talking about, it was like I could borrow this thing and make it work into this world. So I have notes everywhere on my phone, like all over the place.
I remember when I first came onto the project, I was looking through like the ideas you had on that little wiki, whatever it was we were using originally. And
it was some sort of wiki.
Yeah, and you had like the probably hundreds of like image references in total across that wiki of like things you just found online or pictures you'd taken that kind of like that were inspiring this one concept, which is kind of how I work too. I basically make like a mental note and then I'll write it down of things I see throughout the day or images I like, that kind of thing. And then I'll kind of synthesize it into something later with however I'm feeling or like a philosophy or something that I'm thinking about lately. So it was good that our kind of creative processes worked the same way there too. But we just basically was like boiling a bunch of things down into something new, that thing new being Scavenger. So
yeah. And I'm glad that this is a process that still continues. I mean, we have our own Discord channel and we have the inspiration channel in there. And we basically drop whenever we find something interesting, something cool, we drop it there and get us both inspired. Instantly like, oh, this is dope. We need to make it work.
No, there's some weird stuff we put in that channel too, like that rock I posted today that has the uranium in it, so it glows under UV light. I was like, what? I can use that.
Yeah, exactly. Super cool stuff in there.
So let me see. Go ahead.
I don't know. Another aspect that we decided to make the world. The initial idea was to make it just like a book with stories, just art and stories about that world. But then we decided to make it into a D&D setting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we choose the 5e.
Yeah. So there were a lot of ideas around it. We thought about starting off with our own system, but we realized that 5e was probably we could stick pretty well to 5e. Scavenger, especially when you're inside of Torn, it works pretty well with like the kind of hijinks you can kind of get up to in 5e and everything. Um, but I think now we got to the point where like, the universe to us is getting so big that we could really make like multiple like games and that kind of stuff for Scavenger easily. Like the solo games that are catching on now, small games like that, all kinds of little things that go with it. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that we did do D&D at first. But I think it's funny that time is like a flat circle because now we're going back slowly to just stories and pictures, which I
Yeah,
think is funny. But I'm glad that we have all of it for Scavenger. I think that Scavenger is so big that kind of deserves like having all those different pieces floating around for it, different ways to kind of
yeah,
intake the setting.
yeah, exactly. And I think 5e we also chose because we want this book. I mean, we don't have any constraints with this, but we want this book to be to reach a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And 5e being this popular right now came naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you still play? Like, do you play 5e like regularly or anything, or no?
I haven't played in a year or something like that, but I did play regularly for the last 5 years before the pandemic started. I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Then it
feel you.
was. Yeah, it was. I mean, we tried to play online after that. Didn't really work for me. I couldn't concentrate on that. I don't know. Maybe I can give it another try. But yeah, I missed it. I really missed it. Anyway, I didn't play Dark Sun or something like that. I just played regular D&D.
I see.
Yeah.
I think I played D&D with a number of settings. I still play now, of course. I'm doing all the like Scavenger playtest campaigns and stuff right now. But I try to play other games too. I'm running 2 Heart games, Heart: The City Beneath by I can't remember the name. I'm blanking on the name right now, but they're a UK publisher. And that game is crazy fun. I'm picking that up again soon.
Wait, I have it here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I can't. Anyway.
And then I'm playing another group right now. We're playing Silent Titans, which is a really fun game. But man, this stuff is weird. So when Silent Titans came out, I remember the Kickstarter came out, and I got the PDF for it. Took a lot of inspiration from this for Scavenger 2 with the kind of not the zaniness of it, but the impossibility of what they were trying to convey throughout Silent Titans. I thought was very appealing. So it's a book about, these time traveling Titans and everything. You get stuck back in time, having to stop them. The Titans are dungeons, that kind of stuff. Like really weird base concept with even weirder art on top of it. So when I was making Scavenger, that kind of weirdness was something I really wanted to invoke because I don't think there's a way to better like kind of bring across that idea that this is another world and crazy shit is happening here other than having things that are really weird but still somehow understandable, right? Like they're on a background of normalcy almost.
Yeah, another aspect that I'm really glad we made it successful is that we have these 2 worlds. They are quite different because Akara, it's very grounded. It's an ancient world. It's Bronze Age fantasy. But then you have Torn, which is like it's an alien world, more advanced. And you can switch between them. Or if you want to play more like that or like that, you can always switch.
So was it just like Stalker and Planescape that inspired the idea, like this tale of 2 worlds?
It's hard to remember right now, but I think these were the main ones. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wanted something like Planescape-ish, but Planescape it's huge. I love it. I don't want to copy it,
Yeah.
But I want to have this kind of weirdness around it. Some of those impossibilities,
Yeah, and the philosophies and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I still want to have it like a grounded thing. With Torn, you can have both.
Yeah, with Torn, where people don't know it yet, but Torn, when we do the Torn book, that thing is going to be insane. We have some very wild ideas in that, and I like this.
Can't wait.
I like this almost like osmosis that happens of the weirdness from Torn into Akara, where things are kind of coming over and starting to change Akara, the Shardstones, artifacts, that kind of thing. So it presents that idea, like even though it's a Bronze Age world, it's a Bronze Age world that's been thrust into like the far-flung future, right? And so even though it's like, you know, like you think of like Mesopotamia, Babylon, that kind of like technology and everything, and then you suddenly give them like warp technology and Shardstones and access to all this other weird stuff. It's like, what the hell comes out of that? And so it's been fun with that like extreme dichotomy running together, like in writing, like how that twists into each other, and also how that kind of affects the human experience. Because if you've never had a scientific method, and now you have like all these like big artifacts whirling and warping reality and stuff, it's going to be crazy experience like living through that age. So
yeah, I'm super excited about the Torn book. Can't wait to share more about it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We already have a lot of, not a lot, but some art and a lot of written text about it. So yeah, maybe soon. We'll see.
We'll see.
But yeah, I mean, another thing from the origins of Scavenger, it's the themes that inspired Scavenger. Because back in 2015, 16, I guess, there was this massive crisis of migration, mostly in Europe, but all around the world, I guess. And I tried to integrate that. I'm a migrant, it's not that bad for me, but I understand some of the aspects behind that, how people feel when you're displaced from home, you know, you have to make it work in a new place. But also we try to add all these different aspects from our world, like the climate crisis, the climate change, tyranny, rebellion, survival, hope, and all this mixed in this setting.
Yeah, so that was another thing I really liked when I first came onto the Scavenger project, and we were doing the theme kind of like building together at that point. And at the time, I was just looking around me, and it was just too much kind of like a richness in real life in terms of like problems going on, disasters, things being uncertain. And it was that ultimate feeling of uncertainty that really came across the most to me. So I found it very easily to kind of pin these themes on the Scavenger as I was writing it and bake them into the very foundation of it. So I know we wrote that blog post about like the refugee theme for Scavenger. There's like the idea of again, like you mentioned, the climate crisis. A big thing in Scavenger is the extinction event with the cataclysm / great dying. We have oppression, police brutality, a lot of these very modern themes that have been able to find a vehicle inside of Scavenger, which I really like, being able to serve in that purpose.
Yeah, exactly. So mostly Akara, the grounded world where you start, where you play, it has all this oppression and survivalism in it. But then you move to Torn, which is, of course, it's super dangerous and weird, and but also there is some hope in there.
Yeah.
And you need to figure it out how you can make it work.
Yeah, there's like a freedom in Torn, right? Because you know when you're in Kara, maybe you've been a slave or a Sakai, or you had to live on a savannah and watch like all the food and water dry up. You go into Torn, you have to learn, of course, the rules of how Torn is working, like the rules of reality, but there's no one there. Everything that was there that used to kind of rule it is now gone. So you really have like a blank slate if you can kind of cut it and hew your way forward of making your own freedom in Scavenger, which I think is a very strong theme to have in there with the hope, but it's also like a bittersweet hope, right? Yeah. Because there were people in Torn originally, we had the Zenith people, but what happened to them and all the other things that was there, like the big mystery, clearly something bad, like a Torn cataclysm. So that even though you have this hope and this potential for freedom, you still have to be worried because you're not quite free of like the cool road that you walked from Akara to get here.
Yeah, exactly. You know that something it's weird and something's broken because why is nobody here? What are these ruins? Why something happened? Something really bad happened here.
You're walking through like the Merqual. Yeah, exactly. It's a free world. But then you're walking through like the Merqual Valley and you're seeing like these random suns made of sand like rise up around you, and you're like, what in tarnation is this? So but no, it's been really dope. It's been dope.
Yeah. Cool. I don't know what else to add to that.
Throw me a question.
I don't have any. Do I have any?
Andy's like,
let me check my notes.
Burr.
Let's see. I think it's fun for people to know how did you drop into this project.
How I came in. So
Yeah.
when I first came into Scavenger, let's see, that was three 3 years ago, I think, right? Because I was,
Something like that.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
just graduating from my undergrad program at UNCC. I saw the ad for Scavenger, like the idea of it. It was put on, it was orchestrated so that way it was on the D&D website, which is really cool. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And I waited like 5 months. Actually, no, before that, like 6 months before I got onto the project, I knew about Scavenger. I waited like 5 or 6 months waiting to see what would happen next with the project, and nothing did. So I
Yeah.
did the classic millennial thing of sliding into Andy's DMs. And I was
Yeah.
like, you need someone to write for you? Originally, the idea was I was going to help out just a little bit. I wasn't going to get paid. It would be a big part of the project. I was going to help like grease some wheels and get things going. Give me 1 second. My bad. So I did the classic millennial thing where I slid into Andy's DMs. I was going to be like an intern. I wasn't really sure what I would end up doing with the project overall. I just really wanted to help out and see if I could kind of make this cool idea come true. And then next thing you know, I was writing the entire book, and that was really sick. So that was cool. It was very, I don't want to say like easy. I got pretty lucky that Andy gave me a chance, because before that I had a pretty short resume. I'd only worked on a couple projects and everything. Hadn't got my master's degree or anything. So for me, Scavenger was a big like proving ground. Like, can I really take the ideas that I have about what would be a good game book, what would be a good world book, what is world building and that kind of stuff, and can I really make something from it? So basically what I would do is I would take the art that you would give me, and again, like I said earlier, I would just deconstruct ideas away from that to build the world. I did a lot of studying about how culture comes about in the real world, how civilizations have been built up. I even looked as back as like ancient history, like 200,000 years ago, with people and the records we have of how they ate and everything. And then I started looking at how like religions and belief systems and all that stuff was coming together. And slowly but surely, the more I wrote, the more firm I came into the project, until eventually at last I had taken everything over. No. And so eventually at last, me and Andy were kind of basically co-founding Scavenger instead of me just kind of like helping out with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was great. I was lucky that you sent that email.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were the person that I needed for the project.
I'm glad I was the one to be able to work on Scavenger, because it gave me a vehicle that I needed to also work through some personal stuff of mine that I could put into the setting. A lot of my thoughts and feelings about the world and the universe is reflected in like the Akaran mysticisms, how I kind of see the world. You can see in the different city states and things that I think is cool and everything. So it was also a good chance for me to kind of come into my own as an artist by finishing writing Scavenger, because by the time I finished the book, I had finally started to begun to realize what kind of art I want to make, what kind of worlds I like to make, what a process for me in world building looks like, and all that kind of thing, and how I can translate that into mechanics. So that was a very fun time, and kind of like a time like a little self realization and everything throughout the Scavenger process, which is really really dope.
Yeah, super cool. And this is the thing that I'll advise everyone, especially people who are starting into this, just insert yourself into a project, like help out with something. This is cool. You don't know where the rabbits will jump from.
Yeah, because so when I came on, you had the names of the city-states. We had the name of Akara. Torn didn't have a name yet. We weren't sure if it was going to be called like Splinter or something like that.
Yeah, it's so many names.
Yeah, we called that Splinter. We called that Shard. Shardstones didn't have a name yet either. We were just kind of calling them just Shards at the time, but they had other different possible names too. So when I came in, the project was pretty bare bones, which was a blessing for me, because I think I do best when I have a slight foundation to build on top of. But it was a lot of work coming up with all of it too, because we had to go through all the city-states, all the tribal mobs, like how that came to part, how these governments would form and everything. But I think where it really came together for me is when we started doing, again, those Akaran mysticisms. Because once I had kind of fleshed out how the people of this world, like what they believe in, what they like to do, how they kind of like show not spiritual agency over the world, but still like a form of spiritual agency over the world. Once I had that done, the entire picture Akara at least came into view. And then after that was Torn, which a lot of Torn was just like me thinking, I really want to make science fantasy, but I want to mix it with the mysticisms I've now already made, right?
Yeah, that part is really cool. I can't wait to see more on the next book.
Yeah, and you see, you see in the first book too. So like, I have it. What I had to do because Andi didn't want us to be too transparent with the science because these people won't have words for a lot of these things, like ammonia, for example. That's like a very like our world type of word, even though it's a more universal concept. So in naming things and kind of like encoding things from the bronze perspective, I was actually able to work in some very high high concept scientific and science fantasy ideas. Everything from like the Sentinels, which you had already come up with, but my favorite being like Penor's Plains, which like lets out ammonia from the grasses, and there's like this hydrogen rain that comes down and melts and everything. People don't know because they're from a car, they don't know that there's hydrogen rain coming down. That's why they're talking funny all of a sudden, or they don't know that like when they're going to Samua's marshes, they don't understand the reason why the swamps are moving like they do, right? But it's all kind of like a little bit scientifically sound and then driven up to 11 with the idea of these Shardstones that warp reality. So
yeah, and I'm glad we spent a lot of iterations on also on naming. Like we try to keep the words, the names, everything that it's in that world. It's not something that actual from today or something that's out of place. It's something from there. You feel it's from there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, and so in order to do that, what I had to do is so in our world, languages always have certain words that they use that even though in translation, it might just be something simple, right? If you look at the actual word and its etymology, there's a whole lot of culture behind it. Like the use of the word home at the end, like as a suffix for a lot of like place names and the Nordic Europe and everything, that kind of idea. So like for that, I replaced home, it was tower. It makes sense to me that Akarans has like a big fascination with towers or the monolith and how the cities build up and everything. So it was building a slow lexicon of these kind of words that are very Akaran and how they're used, not used the same way here on Earth, and then building the culture and the kind of the, I guess like not the worldview, but just like how they paint their world, if that makes sense, right? Like how they see their world, how they kind of like transfer their world from just like things around them to actual information. And eventually, what I'm hoping to do is to make constructed languages for all of these places. That'll be really fun. I've been working on that for a while now, but no real progress yet. But much like Tolkien, I do want to create just like a host of languages for Akara to use.
That'll be cool. That'll be cool. But yeah, I remember also in the beginning when we had, I had for basically the big cities, there was how we worked. I had like a very basic page on our document where like a few names for the city that might work. And then the big lines like inspirations. This city is about that, and it's inspired by that, this, and that, and that. These are the big powers here. This is how the city should feel. And I had like images saved with reference images for everything. Yeah, and this we had also for the whole map. We had like this side of the map should feel more like this, and it has this kind of aspect of like these kind of animals or fauna or vegetation, everything. And also a big thing that influenced Scavenger was drawn influence from actual our world cultures from all over the place. Like, of course, ancient Babylon and everything it's in there, but we have also Africa,
Venice,
Europe,
India.
Exactly. All these ancient cultures. I try to mix everything in there.
Which I thought was really fun. A lot of people, so I've been asked a few times, like what kind of like cultural inspirations are there for Akara? Because, you know, a lot of people, when they get into a fantasy setting, they're used to that very one-to-one cultural inspiration that you'll see. But for Scavenger, I was glad that we decided to get a little bit further away from that. So like Batar, for example, In Batara, you have like Indian ideas. You have Venice, like the canal city, that kind of like thing. You have the swamps around it, the poisons, the weird kind of like overseer government system that's going on.
Yeah.
So even though like we definitely looked to real world of things to draw on, we didn't want to use anything one-to-one when making anything.
No.
So especially with like some of these like concepts like in Batar with the color festival, I didn't want to just like steal the Indian color festival. One, because I don't want to culture appropriate it, and two, because that color festival can really only happen here on Earth. It would have to be something different that's happening on Akara, right? So it's fun to kind of come up with these ways to reinterpret how the cultures were coming together and manifesting, and even what these cultural traditions would mean in context of everything. So
yeah, and I like that we applied, I think, successfully to somewhat degree. It's the punk aspect of the world.
Definitely.
Visually, for me, it was fun to make. Of course, the big inspiration was Brome's art. How the characters are dressing. It's how they express themselves.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not just I need an arbor, but but I need an arbor and I have to decorate it and I need to show and express something. Then tell something about myself, how I dress.
That gives me an idea. I just gave me an idea for a mechanic to use in the future with like customizing like your armor and everything. I think that would be really fun. But no, that's another thing that I thought was very unique too. Because usually when you see these fantasy art of heroes, right? They're either like paragons of what that idea of the hero is, like the ranger paragon or like a paladin or barbarian, or the things that they're kind of loaded with is like the things that you always see, like a bone helmet or, this, that, and the other, like a druid with the horns and all that stuff. You always see that kind of thing. So when I was looking at Scavenger art the first time and I was seeing people with like shaved heads and gauges and that kind of stuff and like tattoos on the face, I was like, okay, this is really like a very unique and fresh concept for a hero here, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and it's also fun because I had the references and inspiration from all the ancient cultures from all around the world. And if you mix them all in a good way, you know what aspects to draw from each and mix them well, it's really, really good.
Which is dope. It reminds me sometimes when I'm looking through it, I'm like, it's like if someone from like the cyberpunk world was sent back 2,000 years, but still wanted to like create shit instead of like creating the cybernetic shit. They're just putting back, like they're putting together like random pieces of animals and like, this is my cybernetic. It's like, okay, that's just cybernetic, I guess. So.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe we can see some of that in Torn. I don't know.
I can't wait for that. That'll be fun. But even like the less cybernetic and more, just like you said, like punk stuff, expressing yourself, I think is the big thing, right? Because everyone in a car is kind of like based around this idea of one surviving, but also expression, right? How you express yourself is important because it's telling other people how you survived up until this point. Right. And the and one of the mysticisms, the one called Our Cruel Road, I put in this idea that some people, like they will tattoo their hands and their feet with these symbols of things that basically represent like these tragedies or cataclysms or things that they've had to survive while living through Akara. So it's like that kind of like idea is just very fundamental to what they're doing because and I wrote this in the book too, the core virtue of an Akaran is I want to survive to see tomorrow. And I want you to survive to see tomorrow. And how they do that through this kind of visual language between each other, I think is a very fun way to go about everything.
So this is it for the first episode, I guess. We tried to bring some light on how we came to work together and how the Scavenger book started.
And the origins of everything, all that kind of stuff. So if you did enjoy this Shardcast of ours, you guys can like it, subscribe, all that kind of thing. And then if you guys have questions for us or things that you would like us to talk about in the future, things that you think that you want us like to delve more into between each other, or even just kind of like address overall, you can leave that in the comments. You can come through our Discord channel at Shardstone Assembly. We have the link for that in the summary of this as well. So you guys can ask us questions there, and we'll make sure to answer them for the next time we do another Shardcast.
Yeah, and if if we have time, we're gonna make some more like with different aspects of the Scavenger world. We can talk about the cities. We can talk about
cities,
characters,
people,
or whatever.
Yeah, monsters, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But we like your feedback, and let us know what you think.
Let us know what you guys think, and thank you for those of you who did listen all the way to the end of this. It's fans like you guys who really make this whole thing possible. So again, we appreciate it. And with that, I'll see you guys later.